Cincinnati coach Wes Miller needed to build a team that could win next year, and he did just that, landing an impressive haul in the transfer portal. Today we're breaking down all 6 of their game tapes and talking about how the star-studded cast is going to help Cincinnati next year and reach the tournament again. So stay tuned, the film breakdown starts right now. Let's kick this off by talking about quite literally the biggest addition of them all in Moustapha Thiam. The 7'2" center out of UCF was physically dominant last year in the Big 12. He possesses the ability to finish over defenders who are smaller than him with either a hook shot. He's very strong over his left shoulder with his right hand. And he can also finish above people over the rim. So you'll see a lot of lob dunks and catches in traffic. And his ability to explode off of 2 feet makes him just a huge threat around the rim altogether. Now, he also showed the ability to hit some jump shots last year, so I think that's a part of his game which could definitely grow, and if it does, then it really becomes a situation where you have to watch out because he's going to become so much more of a dynamic threat. But even without that, just as he is right now, you have to pencil him in as someone that is obviously a very, very high Big 12 caliber level player. So coming in, there's not many questions about his ability to produce. Now, they're going to have some options behind him and some players that can play with him, so foul trouble is not really an issue. You just love all the untapped potential you see in his game and the ability for him to grow in a lot of different ways. So it's a super exciting pickup for Wes Miller in Cincinnati, and you got to love that. Wes Miller then found just an absolute dynamite pairing with Thiam and Baba Miller. Now, in my opinion, Baba might be the most diverse and dynamic player in the transfer portal. So he is someone who is a very, very capable shooter, shooting about 35-36% from 3, can score in a multitude of ways, has a really solid ball handler for a guy his size, and he gets to the rim really well on top of all of that. So it gets to be really exciting. You're pairing 2 guys with a ton of length who can protect the rim, play some good defense, interchange for each other when necessary, but can also stretch that defense out to the 3-point line. Now, when you look at how he was used last year at Florida Atlantic, he spent a ton of time both as a spot-up shooter. He spent a really solid amount of time in transition. That he runs the floor very hard, and he's a very willing cutter off ball, but then you can post him up or put him in an isolation situation and count on him to get a bucket. So when I look at those 2 pieces in particular, in Thiam and Miller, I think they're just going to complement each other very well, and they're going to put Cincinnati and Wes Miller in a position to have 2 dynamic front court players that they can really, really lean on. So it's a match made in heaven. But Wes Moore was not done adding front court pieces. He picked up a really, really interesting prospect in Jalen Haynes. Now, he comes from George Mason, so he's moving up as far as conference difficulty goes, but he is an absolute bully. He's a bit undersized for the type of game that he plays, being around 6'8", 6'9", but is incredibly strong and is really patient, has great feet and great touch. So you'll see a lot of times he is more of an old school back to the basket player, and he punishes guys when they try to defend him down there. I mean, he lowers his shoulder well without getting too many charge calls, and it just kind of imposes his will. And there's also a couple clips you're going to see where he rises up and is able to throw one down. So the big man has some athleticism that he's going to be able to show off at a higher level. Now, I think it's also interesting that he's the smallest of the 3 front court pieces that we've talked about so far, but, you know, he's probably the more physical down low force. So, again, this just speaks to a great pairing for Cincy. Now, shifting our focus to the backcourt, they were able to bring in 3 pieces that are all very quality, the first of which being Jalen Celestine out of Baylor, who is a very skilled, kind of all-around player. There's no one part of his game that sits out and says this is his best trait, but he can do everything on the offensive end to a really high degree of difficulty. So as a spot-up shooter is probably where he was the most consistent, was a mid-30% shooter there, also got to the rim pretty well, and is able just to make things happen. So I view him more of as a combo guard that's going to be a complementary scoring piece in a pretty good offense. And he's someone that's just going to be a bucket getter that you can surround with some elite big man talent. So, you know, he can handle the ball some as well. A really good complementary piece that I could see, you know, being a good player on an NCAA tournament team. If not, you know, he's not going to be their best player. So a good pickup, solidifies the backcourt, and we'll talk more about his teammates. They then landed Sincere Harris out of West Virginia, And there's a lot to like about his game as well. Now, he is not a shooter and did not shoot the ball particularly well last year at West Virginia. But what he did do and did excel at is get to the rim, use his shiftiness and creativity to finish around the basket. He shot a high percentage, around 60% around the rim, which is good. And he's also a really, really outstanding defender. He had about 50 steals last year, led that West Virginia team, and looks to push the pace once he gets the rock. So he's someone that helps you out on both ends. I know I'm focusing mostly on offense today, and he does have areas he contributes there. And he can act as a kind of combo guard ball handler and offense initiator as well, which is going to be important. So it's a glue piece for sure. It's not someone who's going to be a world beater on offense, but when you look at it in the grander scheme of things with what they brought in, it's certainly a good fit for what they're trying to accomplish in Cincinnati. Now, the last player that they brought in out of the transfer portal was Kentucky's Kirk Risa. Now, he had a really weird year at Kentucky last year, and he's had a long enough career where I can give him the benefit of the doubt. So you're going to see a lot of clips from him at West Virginia. And the reason for that is, he was much more statistically true to what his capabilities are there than he was at Kentucky. He was about a 45% shooter from three-point land on a pretty high volume of attempts. So for a floor spacing option in a lineup that's going to have some really big, athletic, dynamic pieces, you can't get much better than this. Now, I would encourage Cincinnati fans, again, don't look at the stats last year from Kentucky. That does not tell the true story of who Kirk Risa is. If you focus on his actual abilities, this is a really good pickup for them. So what are my final thoughts on this Cincinnati transfer portal class? Well, I love all of the pieces that they've assembled. So you look at how Baba Miller fits in with the Moustapha Thiam, and those two are just hand in glove fits for each other's game. So from that perspective, you can see what they're building right off of those first two pieces. Then you add in a guy like Jalen Haynes who complements the both of them by being able to be a bruiser down low and allowing some of them room to operate if they want to have it. And having that third piece that can rotate in at either spot is big and makes Wes Miller's job a heck of a lot easier once he knows that he has the pieces to move in and out for. Then, you move to the guard side of things, and I feel like Jalen Celestine is a very underrated piece. He's someone who's going to be able to grow into a pretty substantial role, fit into at least what he was doing at Baylor, and probably at a floor maintain that type of production. So that fits really well with what they need, and they need someone that can shoot the ball at a respectable clip, and that's certainly him, right? Then you add in another shooter like Kirk Risa, who's going to be steady throughout the year, who's very familiar with the league, has been at West Virginia, has been at Kentucky. Now he's going to Cincinnati. He's been around, provides some true veteran, older guy type of experience. And then you add a piece like Sincere Harris, who I'm curious. I haven't dug into the Cincinnati fans' reaction to him yet, but offensively, he does leave some things to be desired, but what he can contribute defensively, and then you throw in his ability to get to the rim, it's all very positive stuff. So I think from that perspective, as a transfer portal class in itself, and as a pretty large chunk of where your team's production is going to come from, you have to feel pretty confident if you're a Cincinnati Bearcat fan. Like, you have to know that we have pieces coming in who are going to fit defined roles and do very specific things that they're brought in for. And you have guys with potential star power, which is what you need when you're looking to ultimately not only build a resume for a potential tournament appearance, but also really make noise in a Big 12 that's going to have some high-end talent in it. So you've put yourself in a position where your floor is probably pretty established, like you're going to be a very competitive team throughout the year. But when you start talking about the ceiling of a team like Cincinnati, that's when you can get excited and say, wow, if some of these guys hit, we're in really, really, really strong position. Now, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Cincinnati fans, let me know where you think I'm right, where you think I'm wrong, what were good takes, what were bad. I'm really curious to know. Leave a comment below with any of those thoughts, or any non-Cincinnati fans too. Let me know if you think I'm too high on all this. But outside of that, I appreciate everyone being here. I know there's a lot of sports content out there. Our goal is just to help you stay as informed as possible and break down teams that you care about. So again, let us know if there's a team that you want me to break down, what they brought in, what they lost. I'd love to do it. If you could subscribe to the channel, that does me a lot of favor, and I really appreciate it. It helps me out more than you know. Just click on the button, be alerted whenever we have new videos come out, and just keep being part of the community. But I appreciate you again. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.